Hi everyone, this is Amber Fulcher. I'm the Program Director for the Vermont Assistive Technology Program.
My name is Leslie Ermolovich. I'm an AT Access Specialist and I manage the Assistive Technology Tryout Center in Burlington at UVM, serving Chittenden, Addison, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties. So we'll start off with a quick definition on what is assistive technology. It's any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. So a piece of AT does not necessarily have to be a product that you purchase from a vendor. You can make a lot of things, adaptations yourself, and that is also considered assistive technology. So for example, maybe you could take an egg carton and turn it upside down and cut some slits in it to use to hold playing cards. Or maybe you can take a pair of old skis and attach them to a child's walker so that they can get around on the playground. Here's some examples of assistive technology that are off the shelf. We have an iPad, some literacy starter CDs. An Echo Smart Pen is great for note-taking, and some communication boards.
So we also want to mention some information about durable medical equipment. Durable medical equipment, or DME, is equipment that's really meant to withstand repeated use and is suitable for the use in the home. Durable medical equipment is also considered assistive technology. Like Leslie said, AT can be something off the shelf, something manufactured, something modified by you at home or at school, as well as durable medical equipment. Some examples of this might be things like wheelchairs, standers, tub or shower equipment, electric beds, and also assistive communication devices. So alternative and augmentative communication devices are considered DME. We do want to mention some information about funding of durable medical equipment. Durable medical equipment can be funded by private insurance, Medicare, or Medicaid. One of the key requirements for durable medical equipment to be funded by Medicare or Medicaid or your private insurance is for the equipment to meet eligibility as medically necessary. And these regulations can vary from private insurance company to private insurance company, as well as vary within federal and state regulations. Here in Vermont, Medicaid is always the payer of last resort. So this is important to know. Medicaid also may fund a single device, but might not fund multiple devices. So if you have a child that needs devices both in school, at home, and in the community, it may be important for you to explore alternative resources for funding for multiple devices. We do want to let you guys know that the Vermont Assistive Technology Program and our related tryout centers are available to help with providing information on resources for finding funding to purchase durable medical equipment when it's not covered under Medicare, Medicaid, or your private insurance. So we do want to give you guys just a little general background on what the assistive technology programs are and what our program does. In the past, there's legislation that was passed, federal legislation called the Improving Access to Assistive Technology for Individuals with Disabilities Act. It's also known as the Assistive Technology Act, and the last iteration of the act was passed in 2004. Basically, it outlines the mandate that every state and territory in our country have an assistive technology program that helps get out information about AT and improves both access and acquisition to assistive technology in the state. we work with all ages and all needs in the state. And so that is part of our mandate, is to be comprehensive. So we work with schools, rehab centers, vocational rehabilitation, a variety of nonprofits, everyone from refugee resettlement programs to libraries. So we're very much generalists, and every program in our country has the same core components. Okay, so in Vermont, our program, like I said, is the Federal Assistive Technology Act program for the state. We are under Vocational Rehabilitation as our lead agency, and although VR focuses on employment for folks with disabilities, our charge is different in that we actually work with everyone from 3-year-olds all the way up through the elderly. So our services are available to anyone in terms of all Vermonters can make referrals and access our services. We don't have any kind of eligibility requirements, so we frequently get referrals from families, educators, service providers, and employers. It really does just run the gamut. So our services are provided both in the field in terms of our presence around public awareness events, conferences, and outreach events. But we also have regional tryout centers, and Leslie will be telling you more about our regional tryout centers here in just a bit.
So our core services include information and assistance, and this is something that we can provide to people either over the phone, by email, or even in person. And we also do device demonstrations. So if you call up and you're looking for something to help in a particular area, we can match assistive technology to meet those needs and set up an appointment to have you come in, and we would do a demonstration of the equipment. We also do equipment loans. These are 30-day short-term loans, and the purpose of that is to give you a chance to take the piece of equipment that you think might work for you, either to school or to home or work, wherever it is you're going to use it, to give you a chance to really try it out before you go out and purchase it. We don't sell equipment, but we can point you in the right direction for resources as to where you could find the equipment. We also offer trainings and workshops on different AT topics throughout the year. We do public awareness events where we will go to somebody's conference and set up an exhibit table to get the word out there about our services. And we also offer technical assistance. We do have a referral process, so if you're looking to set up an appointment at one of our tryout centers, you would contact Emma Cobb, our AT Services Coordinator, and then she would let the appropriate AT Access specialist know about the information, and then one of us would call you to set up that appointment. But all referrals go through Emma Cobb. So our Burlington Tryout Center is the one that I manage, and I serve Chittenden, Addison, Franklin, and Grand Isle counties. We're located at the Center on Disability and Community Inclusion at the University of Vermont in Mann Hall. We also have 2 other tryout centers, one that covers, that's in Rutland and covers the Rutland, Windsor, Bennington, and Windham counties. Ben Wimett is our AT Access specialist in Rutland, and he's at the Acer Bloomer building right in the city of Rutland. We also have our Montpelier Tryout Center. Tracy Rue is our AT Access specialist at that tryout center in Montpelier, and that's right at the Capitol Plaza. And the Montpelier Tryout Center serves Washington, Lamoille, Orange, Caledonia, Orleans, and Essex counties.
Okay, I do see a clarifying question that just came in. Somebody asked, do you need to make an appointment before going to a tryout center? Yes, we do encourage you to make an appointment beforehand. Frequently, we are either in the field or we may have demonstrations already scheduled, so it might be difficult to be available just on a drop-in basis. So if you are interested in coming to a tryout center to have a hands-on demonstration of equipment, or even to just take a tour of your local tryout center and see what's kind of hot, new in AT, we encourage folks to contact Emma Cobb to set up that appointment time. Okay. So we did want to review some additional services of the Assistive Technology program. I had mentioned earlier about funding of durable medical equipment and how we can offer some alternative options around funding. One of the resources that we're very proud of and that we do in conjunction with multiple states in New England as well as New York is manage a website that's like a Craigslist for durable medical equipment and AT. That website is getatstuff.com, and I'm going to just show you all that website briefly. Okay. So getatstuff.com is a searchable website where folks can choose the state that they'd like to review options in, and then they can either post a request for certain equipment, they can browse the site for things that might be helpful, and they can also post items that that they have available themselves. And so we see a variety of items come through here, anywhere from adapted vans to donated power wheelchairs, standers, stair glides. We've even had a couple of iPads and communication devices come through our website here. Emma Cobb helps to manage this for us, but it is largely a user-based site. And it's very active in Vermont. We have a lot of community members that are using this. One of the things that we are really cognizant of is we want to make sure that folks are getting equipment that's a good match for them. And because this is consumer driven and it's really based on exchanges among consumers out there, we really encourage folks to consult with their general practitioners or their related service providers like PTs and OTs or an SLP to make sure that they're getting the equipment that's the right match for them and is going to be really effective for them. Okay, so another option that we have in terms of some alternative funding or alternative access to durable medical equipment is we have the Vermont AT School Exchange or AT School Swap in the state, and we have almost all supervisory unions that are members of the AT School Swap. And so with the swap, it's a members only exchange, and it allows schools to basically trade equipment among themselves. So when they have a student that might move on to a different school or might change to a different type of equipment, instead of that piece of equipment just hanging out in a closet, it can actually be exchanged with our given to a school in another district. This is something that is federally endorsed as well as endorsed by the state. So if you have a need for equipment, it's important to just bring this up. Special educators are becoming more aware of this resource, and in order to have a school sign on to the school exchange, the special ed director of the school or the supervisory union needs to actually set up the membership, and then they designate specific folks to be liaisons to the instructors or related service providers to actually post equipment on the exchange or obtain equipment from the exchange. So if you, in your local schools, if you have a need for something, check in with the special ed director, see if you guys are a member of the school exchange, and see if they can put a feeler out for the equipment or see what's available on the exchange. Again, Emma Cobb helps to manage this. We also have an iPad rental program that we do in partnership with the Department of Vermont Health Access. This iPad rental program is set up to support speech and language pathologists that need to do a 30-day trial when they're checking to see if an iPad is going to be a good match for someone who needs a communication device. In Vermont, Medicaid will fund an iPad as a dedicated communication device. It does require the same 30-day trial as any other type of communication device, like something made by PRC or Dynavox. And so we actually have iPads that are set up as dedicated communication devices that an SLP can rent from us for 30 days, and Medicaid will pay for that rental, so they can go through a 30-day trial for their patient. Let's see, and then the next piece is the equipment distribution program. Starting October 1, the telecommunications equipment distribution program will be administered through us through the Assistive Technology program in partnership with a community provider. But the equipment distribution program provides alternative access to any kinds of AT out there that supports communication. This is an income-based program, so you have to meet income eligibility requirements. And the types of devices that it's set up to fund are things like alternative telephones. I've seen laptops that have been funded through here when folks need like alternative ways to communicate through email or through something like video conferencing and that kind of thing. So basically somebody has to meet eligibility requirements and they have to be using the devices for communication in order to qualify for funding through the equipment distribution program. So one of the most important things to remember with the equipment distribution program is it doesn't fund alternative communication devices. AAC devices are prescriptive. They're, like I said, they're durable medical equipment. And so in order for somebody to access an AAC device, they really need to be supported by a speech and language pathologist to make sure that it's the appropriate fit for them and that they're getting the device that's going to meet their communication needs. Again, the EDP really is around communication means like through alternative access to telephones and that kind of thing. So I just see another question that came through here. It says, our special ed director left. Do we need to redo membership for the AT school swap? Yes, I would encourage you guys to contact Emma Cobb and make sure that you're still signed on to the school exchange and that you still have a designated point person for the school swap. Okay, so then the next piece, we're going to switch gears here for a minute. The next piece that we wanted to review with you guys is some very specific information about assistive technology consideration in public education and specifically in an IEP. So I'm going to go through a little bit of information about federal laws around access to public education and AT, and also we're going to briefly touch on a model that special education teams can use to consider assistive technology. And all of this is information we'd be happy to share with folks on a more individual basis if you have questions about this as follow-up. So the first slide here, I do want to go ahead and give credit to a community partner that we work with frequently, Jean Shute. She's an assistive technology specialist in the South Burlington schools. These slides are ones that she put together for a project that we worked on, and she's given us permission to use these. Basically, assistive technology consideration, it's an actual thing. It's a thing that's mentioned under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA or IDEA. IDEA is what mandates that free and appropriate public education be available to all students. Specifically, it talks about inclusion and access for students with disabilities. So assistive technology consideration is basically a decision-making process to determine whether or not technology is needed so a student can have access to the free and appropriate education. So the same AT Act that set up the assistive technology programs also set up provisions around consideration of assistive technology in IEPs. So it says that an IEP team shall consider whether a child requires assistive technology devices and services. It's an actual mandate. So the two definitions that are important to know about is an AT device and an AT service. An AT device is any item, piece of equipment, or product system that's used to increase, maintain, or improve functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. The exceptions are medical devices, things like a feeding tube, something that's surgically implanted, or a replacement of such a device that's a surgical device. An AT service is any service that actually helps a kid be able to access, acquire, or use AT. So this would be things like training. So once a piece of assistive technology is considered and it becomes part of the child's access to free and appropriate public education, then there needs to be some provision to make sure that the device is actually implemented in the classroom. So the challenge for educators is that the federal law says, yeah, you have to consider AT, but they don't actually say what that is and how you do it. So we know that there's a consideration piece, but there aren't clear-cut guidelines on how you make sure that it's sufficiently considered. So this is known as the Texas FourStep model for decision making. It's a very common sense approach, but basically the Texas FourStep model says this is how you make sure that AT consideration actually happens, and the way that we do this is you just embed it up front in the IEP evaluation process. So by embedding it, you're going to make sure that you've done a thorough review of the present levels of performance. You look at all the evaluation data. You develop very clear goals and objectives that are consistent with the IEP goals and objectives. You determine if any tasks are difficult or even impossible for the student, and then you decide whether or not AT or AT services are required, and then you document your decisions. Too frequently we see that IEPs are set up and then assistive technology is kind of an afterthought in terms of having the goals and objectives in the IEP, and then in the after process, folks say, oh, assistive technology might help do this, but it's not a forethought, or it's not really integrated in the IEP up front. So the quality indicators of assistive technology it's a nationally recognized metric to determine if you're meeting certain standards around best practices for assistive technology implementation. And so what we have here are some of the gold standards around AT implementation. The first one is that AT devices and services are considered for all students with disabilities, regardless of type or severity of disability. So assistive technology really is supposed to be considered to make sure that access is available. It shouldn't just be something that's available for students with low incidence disabilities. Similarly, it shouldn't just be available for students who have more high incidence disabilities, like things like learning disabilities, or need something like access to text to speech. We really want to have AT considered across the board for all students. That the IEP team consistently uses a collaborative decision-making process. So one of the advantages of an IEP team is you have folks from multiple perspectives that come together to planning for a student. So we want to make sure that all these same folks are also planning around AT. For example, a parent may have a very different perspective on assistive technology and how it can help their student than the student themselves. Or they may also have a very different perspective than the speech and language pathologist that's involved. So we want to make sure that a collaborative decision-making process is always happening. We want to make sure that decisions are actually based on the student's IEP goals and objectives. And we want to include access to both curricular and extracurricular activities, as well as an overall progress toward the general ed curriculum. So we don't want to just say, oh, this student, for example, could benefit from speech to text, like Dragon, because they have difficulty writing. We want to have very clear goals and objectives about their written output and how you're going to measure the effectiveness of the assistive technology based on how well they've progressed toward their goals in the IEP. Some additional best practices that we want to mention is that the IEP team actually gathers and analyzes data about the student, the environments, what the goals are, and the tasks that are related to the use of the assistive technology. We don't want it to just be a situation where AT is introduced, but there isn't any kind of tracking to make sure that it's actually the right fit and the right match and effective. So this needs to be a structured process. And data collection doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as taking a before and after picture. It could be as simple as gathering a few writing samples from before assistive technology was used to, after it's been implemented. And so this doesn't have to be a really complicated, time-consuming matrix of data collection. It can be something that really works for the team and works for the student. And we also want to make sure that the IEP team explores a range of assistive technology devices, services, and other supports that address identified needs. There definitely isn't a one-size-fits-all ever with assistive technology. Even though we really encourage folks to go from simple to more complex, we want to make sure that all the assistive technology consideration that happens is based on actually feature matching, like matching the features of a device to a student, and making sure that their individual needs are really considered. So what works well for one student, it's not safe to assume is going to work well for another just based on their presentation or disability. And so the other thing is we want to make sure that that the consideration process and results are documented in the IEP. Like we said, it is a federal mandate that this is considered, and so having this kind of documentation allows there to be a consistent kind of story of assistive technology that goes with the student that can be used in transition, and then people aren't reinventing the wheel every time, but that we have proof that it's been considered and that it's actually useful. So one of the things that we want to mention is that there are multiple models out there for assistive technology consideration, but one that we found to be very user-friendly and really hit all those bases in the quality indicators of assistive technology is the Sett Framework for assistive technology consideration. I do have a question here about education endorsing and communicating these as, does the Vermont Agency of Education endorsing and communicating these as best practices? The Agency of Ed has encouraged the use of the Sett Framework for IEP teams, which directly correlates to meeting the quality indicators of assistive technology. The Sett Framework stands for Student, Environment, Tasks, and Tools. And again, like the Texas FourStep model, it is a very common sense approach to decision making, but what it does is it gives you a really clear visual guideline to follow, plus it allows input from all folks on the IEP team. So very briefly, this little matrix here, it's adapted from Joy Zabala's Sett Framework. This particular grid was modified by Gene Shoot for use in the schools with IEP teams. So what we have here is an opportunity to explore information about the student and to look at what the student's strengths and learning needs are and what their interests are. And so what you do is you go down the matrix or go down the grid and you basically say, what do we know? What do we need to know? And what are the barriers that are coming up? The same happens for the environment. We want to look at what kinds of environmental factors there are. So where are the needs noted? Where does the student seem to have more trouble than in other locations? We also want to look at what kinds of supports and accommodations are in place. So a good example of this is we may know of a piece of software that could really meet a student's needs, but it's not applicable in their school environment because of issues with Wi-Fi connectivity or the type of computer system it needs to be ran on. So these kinds of factors can really be a make it or break it. So we want to always look at the environment. You know, how is the environment impacting the student? Plus, how is the environment going to impact the AT implementation? Then we want to look at the tasks. So what are some priority areas and goals that are identified by both the student and the team for AT support? And this is where you want to refer to the IEP. And you also want to make sure that you get, buy-in and input from all the team members and the student. And then lastly, tools. So we want to look at what tools have actually been used, what's been considered, and then we also want to look at what's currently available at school and at home. Like I said, we always encourage folks to start simple with AT and start looking at what's currently available, what can you readily implement without having to do a lot of kind of outside exploration and purchasing if it's not necessary, really to kind of build on the strengths that are currently available. So then the next piece that we have here that can be used by IEP teams is the Sett Framework feature matching document. I had mentioned the importance of matching features of devices to a student's needs. Too often what happens is a device is purchased or considered because it's kind of the latest device or because folks have heard about it or they've seen it used with another student. But this feature matching document actually helps to really slow down an IEP team and make careful decisions about the devices that they're going to look at. So what you do with this document, again, it's very common sense, it's really easy to use, is you would fill in the necessary features that you're going to consider along the top. These might be things like needs large targets. So we would want to make sure whatever they were going to use had large buttons. They prefer a male voice if they're speech output. It needs to have a very simple visual display. It needs to have the opportunity to read PDFs, whatever the feature is along the top. And then along the left side is where you would start listing out possible tools. So you might know of certain tools that could potentially meet the needs, but when you set it up in this kind of grid, you can easily look along the right and say, okay, well, this device is going to meet 3 of these features at the top that are necessary. This other one meets all 5, so that's the one we're going to start with. Again, these documents are available to IEP teams, and we'd be happy to provide these documents to folks if they need it. One of the things that we really are encouraging are folks to get away from an evaluation model. What's really wonderful about AT consideration and using the best practices to undergo AT consideration is it pulls from the strengths and the knowledge of all folks that are involved with the student. It's not an expert model. Plus, it really provides teams with the ability to look at what the students' needs are comprehensively, look at AT implementation comprehensively, and make sure that things are a good match. So you have less of this kind of process of purchasing things that don't really fit or never really get fully implemented in the environment. Okay. So I'm just going to shift gears again here to some resources, and Leslie and I are going to talk about a few resources that are available. One of the things that we do offer is a web-based inventory website where folks from the community can also request equipment loans. We do UPS equipment out to folks who request a loan for free with a return label for free. So you can actually hop onto this inventory website, request a loan, and we'll ship something directly to your door with a free return label. So I'm just going to show you that website really quickly here. Okay. So this is our AT for All website, and in here you can search by category. You can also search by keyword or phrase. So if you had something in mind like adapted eating, you could just put in adapted eating and see the devices that come up. Or you could put in iPad, for example, and see what kind of devices come up. If you search by category, you can also refine your search. Leslie's typing a few things in here. You can also refine your search by location. So if you wanted to see if something was available for demonstration in a specific tryout center, you could search and see if it was in your local tryout center. We do share equipment among our tryout centers. So if there's something that, say, Leslie has at UVM, but Ben doesn't have it in Rutland, Ben can request it from Leslie, and you can actually see it demonstrated in Rutland. We do have over 2,000 devices in our inventory right now, and we're always adding. And we also encourage folks from the community, if there's something you really are interested in trying, if you let us know. We work to try to add things into our inventory that are fresh and new whenever possible. So we often will work with folks to add something into inventory for demonstration if we can. Okay, the other thing that we're working on is we're building a YouTube channel with demonstration videos. Again, if there's something that you would like to see a demonstration of, we can try to work with you to create a demonstration that we can have on our YouTube channel. Right now, we've just gotten a few videos up, but this is an ongoing project, and we're starting with recreation devices. So I'll show you guys that. So right now, if you just go to YouTube and search Vermont Assistive Technology Program, you'll see some of the demonstration videos that we've put into the channel. Okay. So Leslie had mentioned our tryout centers. Also, if you go to our primary website, which is atp.vt.gov, you can find a slew of information about resources. There's also specific information on there about our iPad rental program, and also all of our contact information on this website, so it's worth exploring there.
We have put together a Vermont Assistive Technology Funding and Referral Services Guide. The next couple of slides are going to show you what we have in that guide. You can contact Emma Cobb if you'd like to get a copy of it. So we do offer some resources for funding. I'd just like to point out that we're not endorsing any of these in particular. It's just information that we're putting out there for people. In the funding resources, ATIA has a good website to give you hints on good ways to obtain funding for assistive technology. There's the Muscular Dystrophy Association. The Opportunities Credit Union has an independence fund. The Autism Puzzle Foundation offers some money. And then there's things like the Lions Club. We also have listed some contacts for referrals for services, such as the Stern Center for Language and Learning, Accent Learning Services. Melissa King is the owner of that service. She does a lot of evaluations for students. The VABVI, Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. The Vermont Adaptive Ski and Sports Association is good for recreational activities. And then Voc Rehab, Vocational Rehabilitation of Vermont.
So I do want to mention that some recent legislative changes have happened around the services that are provided through Vocational Rehabilitation Vermont. It's actually some really great changes that have happened to increase access to services for students in transition. The reauthorization of the Workforce Investment Act actually expanded the scope of young folks that VR can now work with. And so vocational rehabilitation is going to start working with students younger than they did previously. Starting like in the freshman and sophomore year, they'll be able to start working with students and start really supporting IEP teams and families and students in planning for transition. They're also able to work with students who are 504 eligible. So it's not just restricted to students who are actually on IEPs. So this is just a good change to know about. It's being implemented this year. And VR is always a great resource to tap into for transition planning and for information about ways to make sure that students are really prepped for college or work or kind of follow up after high school. So I just have a couple of other questions that came up here. One says, what does it cost to visit an AT tryout center and talk about things that might help your child? All of our services that are the core services that Leslie mentioned, the demonstrations and the loans and the visits to the tryout center, those are free. So it doesn't cost anything to come to a tryout center and have an equipment demonstration and talk about things that might be able to help your child. One of the things that we emphasize is that our demonstrations are intended to be like an interactive hands-on show and tell. The real purpose of a demonstration is for somebody to be able to make an informed decision on their own about what they think might work for them. The demonstrations aren't prescriptive and they're not evaluations. So folks need to come ready to kind of learn about general and broad options and then really take advantage of our loan option to borrow the equipment and to try it out in their environment and make sure it's actually a good fit. And we do loan equipment out to IEP teams and to families and individuals so folks can really spend the time. And for example, an IEP team could do an equipment trial with a specific piece of AT and make sure it's a good fit before they invest in it and they have the student invest the time with the equipment. Let's see, the other question I have here is, can I call on the phone and talk about apps that might be helpful? You're certainly welcome to call on the phone and talk about kind of apps and options. This would be considered an information and assistance service for us. And so if we wanted to just kind of brainstorm and problem solve, we can certainly do that with you. The other thing is you'd ask about whether or not services are free. Our trainings are something that we often charge for, and we do try to bring in outside trainers whenever we can to meet the needs of the community. So if folks have specific training areas they're interested in or things that they wish that there was an opportunity to learn about in Vermont, certainly you can let us know and we can try to bring in some trainers for you guys. I also see on here that VFN will be having a Voc Rehab webinar on the changes that I was speaking of around transition and the Workforce Investment Act. That's going to be coming up on October 14th at 10 a.m. So that's all for our presentation, but we are just opening the floor for questions. So if you have any questions at all, if you just would type those in and we'll be happy to answer them. So one of the questions that came up was, what are your thoughts on facilitated communication? One of the things that we need to be really clear about as the Vermont Assistive Technology Program and the Federal AT Act program is, like I said, we are available to meet all needs and all ages and be statewide and comprehensive. So that puts us in a position of really being generalists and needing to have a lot of knowledge about a lot of things. And so we really get away from making kind of clinical judgments or endorsements or anything about different assistive technology and approaches. We really take the position of educating folks on all their options. And so we try to stay abreast of things like changes that are happening around communication and really follow kind of what's happening in the state, but we don't take a particular stance one way or the other. And if somebody wanted to come in and explore options for communication in any modality, our role is really to educate them on the equipment and to educate them on the type of assistive technology that's available, and then let them really make the decisions as to what's best for them with their related service providers, like in their speech and language pathologist or folks who are involved with them in their kind of clinical care. So the other question I have here is, do you go into schools and work with school teams? What we've done with school teams is, actually I'll have Leslie, if you want to talk about what you've done with school teams, like just around having them come into the center.
I've gone into a few schools that have requested a specific training on, say, a communication app that they're currently using. And that's usually a larger group of people, at least a dozen people, for me to travel to the school. Mostly I have school teams that come into my AT Tryout Center, and the whole team will come in. I will get the SLP, the special educator, a physical therapist or occupational therapist, and the student. And again, I've gathered information in advance about what the needs are so that when the team does come in, I can be prepared to show them what I think will meet the needs of that student. And again, it's not too often that I go into a school. It's only if there's a request for a training. Another question is, how much is finding the right AT fit trial and error? Schools want to try the lowest cost when I think my son might benefit from a piece of equipment that is more sophisticated.
Okay, so this is Amber. I'm just going to answer that question there. Finding the right AT fit is definitely trial and error, and one of the things that we really encourage is for school teams or for anyone trying to explore AT is to actually do that kind of before and after data collection that we were talking about, to actually conduct equipment trials so you can see how effective something actually is. And for the needs, the actual presenting needs, and the features that are needed to really drive the decision making, and it not be just driven on lowest cost or easiest or what seemed to work for another student. But that's where using those documents that we shared around the Sett process and the feature match can really help with directing a school team as to what to trial. And then when you have the outcomes of the trials, and you've got your proof right there as to what really was effective and what wasn't, and what pieces were missing.
Another question is, are there free apps that can be used on an iPad? There are thousands of free apps out there. I am all about free, and I'm always out there myself looking for apps in different categories, especially free ones that we can download. We do have some resources if you want to contact one of our AT Tryout Centers on good search engines for looking for particular apps in a certain category. Another question is, will we receive a copy of the PowerPoint? I'm being told it's going to go up on BFN's website along with the recording. Another question is, my daughter has trouble with organizing her schoolwork and remembering daily tasks. Are there apps that help students with ADHD? Yes, there are. Again, there's like thousands of apps out there to choose from, and we're always exploring new apps in different categories. Organization is a big category for us. So give us a call and we can set up an appointment for you and come in and take a look at some of those. I guess, whoops, here's one more question. What happens when families need training on the AT?
So if families need training on the AT and it's school related, this is part of the federal law that I mentioned, where AT consideration of AT devices and services is mandated. Schools are responsible for providing that training for students. Oftentimes what we see happen is folks within the school, like related service providers, folks that work as paraprofessionals, sometimes the educators, they'll become more versed in the assistive technology and they'll actually do the training for the students. We also do have some training resources for folks that we can connect people with. We have a couple of names of folks who can do training on things like specific text-to-speech programs or our different devices. And so if you guys are having difficulty finding a trainer, then let us know. We don't offer individual training for folks at this point, but like I said, we can try to help connect folks to resources if their school is having difficulty finding someone to do the training. Another question we have here, are colleges also federally mandated to provide AT to students who need it? Yes, to an extent. When students move from being under the umbrella of IDEA and standard public education, and they move into a college environment, they're actually transitioning from being under that K-12 free and appropriate education law to being under 504 and ADA. Both 504 and ADA has provisions in the laws around providing access to both curriculum and extracurricular activities in the college environment. So it actually is access to curriculum as well as related services or related opportunities. So the difference is that there's many differences, and this could be a webinar in and of itself, but just specifically around AT, colleges are mandated to provide assistive technology on the campus in order for somebody to access service, or to access the curriculum. The difference here is that colleges aren't, they're mandated to provide assistive technology that meets the need, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the person's individual preference. And they are, like I said, only mandated to provide it to where the student can access it on the campus, but they aren't mandated to provide it for home use or for use in the dorm. So that's where a resource like vocational rehabilitation that can help a student in transition find alternative funding resources for AT that they would use in their dorm would really come in handy. Again, that's something that could be college accommodations, and accommodations under 504 and ADA could be an entire webinar in and of itself, but I'm happy to provide information to folks on this. If you guys just want to give me a call, I can talk to you individually about it, and also connect you with our young adult counselors as a resource within VR. Then I think the last question we have here is, can you share any trends you see in the world of AT? So many schools now provide laptops to all students, for example. One of the biggest trends we see is that kind of in the spirit of universal design and universal access, more and more technologies are being built into our everyday tools. Also, the other trend that we see that's really lovely is that the cost of devices are really coming down as this is happening. A great example is laptops or Chromebooks that students are getting. There are a great array of Chrome apps, Google apps that provide access to students that are free or low cost and can be built right in to the machine or come right into the operating system. Same kind of things with iPads. All iPads or iOS devices have ever-expanding accessibility features that are built right in, such as text-to-speech, speech-to-text that you don't have to access through a separate app. So those are great trends that we're seeing. Another really great example is this recognition of universal design. For example, the University of Vermont has Read and Write Gold, which is a great literacy support program and text-to-speech program loaded onto all of their computers. So every student has an opportunity to access the tools that are built right into Read and Write Gold, and it not just be, having it installed on one computer that's in the access office that only a few students can get to. All right. Well, that's all I see for questions right now. If you guys have any others, please let us know. We're definitely happy to help. And thank you for your time. So we really appreciate you guys joining our webinar today. This webinar will be archived on Vermont Family Network's website, along with many other previously recorded webinars. Be sure to visit VFN's website at www.vermontfamilynetwork.org for a complete list of upcoming webinars, workshops, and support groups. Have a great day. Also, for support and information, feel free to call Vermont Family Network at 1-800-800-4005.